Was giving you some interp. I couldn't hear what he was saying because I don't have one of your receivers, so forgive me if there's any kind of overlap at all. But we've now traveled back and forth through the center section of this fighting on the 21st. Most of the infantry fighting is going to occur basically where we have been driving, if you include the area where I pointed out on the way here. Remember this ridge, you know, that's about the extent of the major battlefield area. But what's going to happen now is we're going to drive from here up to Shepherdstown, which is north of us here, right on the Potomac River. And I want you to be real cognizant of the entire drive, because as we go along, we're going to go through Leetown and Kearneysville. And if you, let me see your map. Does your map go that far? Yeah, there you go. So if you look at the map on page 16, we're going to, and you see the railroad. You see the railroad that leaves Summit Point, and then it hits that white road under the word Early. You see that? All right. When we get down here to this road, that's where we are. We're right there at that spot. And we're going to go across country there, heading to Leetown. So if you look on page 16, we're going to be heading towards Leetown, and we're going to be traveling that entire front. We're going to follow Early's cavalry route up to Shepherdstown. So that's we're following that route, and we're going to point out where that battle action occurs with McCausland's troopers. So we're going to do that. And then when we get to Shepherdstown, we're gonna talk about the fighting with Merritt and kind of open up that part of the battle as well. When I say I want you to be cognizant of the trip, I want you to be cognizant of the distance of the battlefront on this day. This is not a battle that's only pinpointed to say a 2 or 3 square mile area, which is, you know, relatively typical. This is a wide movement. This is a frontal movement that it goes across 15 miles or better. So be aware of that. The other thing I want to point out to you. Oh, he's gonna get out of the middle way. Here they got Smith. Okay. The other thing I wanted to point out to you as we're going along here, as you look at the map, find Harper's Ferry on your map, and you can see that everything that Sheridan's doing is radiating out from Harper's Ferry. Harper's Ferry, remember, as we were talking about this morning, that's going to be his beachhead, so to speak. That's going to be his base of operations. And so as he's pushing out from Harper's Ferry, pushing out towards Shepherdstown, which is basically heading towards Martinsburg as well, and out this direction, which is this road that leads you out to the Valley Turnpike. You know, he's probing out all of these access routes westward and southward, and that action is going to continue to move further south as we get farther along in our story here. come here to this rise, you really get a good view, very similar to the one we had on Thursday at the church back in Cabletown, where you can see just how expansive this part of the valley is. There you can see North Mountain running off to our west. If you look to your right, that's you're looking northward, you're looking towards the Potomac, that's the direction we're going. But look how open this is. When you get away from Harper's Ferry and you break through Charlestown, this is a majorly open and very conducive theater of operations for cavalry actions. The roads here are very, very good, and they radiate out like spokes from a wheel from that Harper's Ferry, Charlestown area. And again, he's punching out, I mean, when I say he, Sheridan is punching out every single one of these routes that's leading westward to the western part of the valley, so that he can try to get to the Valley Turnpike and see where Early is there. Now, Early, remember, is using the Valley Turnpike, just the way Sheridan's using the Route 340 corridor. Completely tangential. Off to the left in that patch of woods, down there in the bottom, is a pond. And that pond doesn't look like anything special, just looks like any other farm pond, you know, maybe 40 feet across. It's written about in Jefferson County Historical Society booklet, and it's always been an area that kids have been attracted to, and it's been a major part of local lore because no one has ever found the bottom of it. It's actually a blue hole type thing that opens up into an underground cavern, and there's an underground flowing stream of water that feeds that thing, and it is probably one of the spookiest water features I've ever stood next to. We've just turned on to the Leetown Road. So if you follow on your map, follow we're heading north from Middleway, or from Smithfield. I'm not sure how they have it marked on your map. And this is going to take us right into Leetown. Leetown's named for Charles Lee. Charles Lee is the general for the American Revolution, and his house is actually here. When he built the house, he was a bachelor. He never married, never had any children. He built this house, and one visitor described it as being very, very odd inside. That when you open the door, there were no partitions. It was just one open room, which that in and of itself isn't that odd, except he had painted on the floor the room areas as if they were walls. And the entire time this visitor was with Charles Lee walked around the marks on the floor as if they were barriers. It was pretty strange to the visitor, who I doubt stayed very long. Now, McCausland's troopers are not traveling on this section of the road. They're actually coming across what's now called Dark Lane, and they're coming across the fields off to our right. And they're going to hit the Leetown Road just about at Leetown. And they're going to engage with those federal troopers who are coming down from Shepherdstown in the fields just north of Leetown. And I'll point that out as soon as we get there. This is south end of Leetown, and I'm straining here because I don't want you to miss Charles Lee's house. Again, we've spent a lot of time together over the years farther up the valley, take a look to your right and left. This is not what it looks like around Newmarket or Mount Jackson. This is very wide open, especially as we now joke about, we say on every tour, far less trees at the time, very, very open, very, very clear vistas, lots of room to maneuver here. And it really sets the stage for being the perfect large landscape for this cat and mouse back and forth. Look how far you can see here even today. That far line there is way up near Kearneysville. So I mean, you're looking great distances here. If this was a clear day, you could easily see the gap at Harper's Ferry from where we are now, which would have been off to the right, slightly right front of the bus. McCausland's Troopers, this house off to the right, there was a nice flowing well here, and McCausland's Troopers watered their horses there. Quickly got back in the saddle and continued on what we call the Leetown Pike. We're going to drop down into Leetown here in just a second, and Charles Lee's house is going to be off to the left. So we're coming into Leetown proper right now. There's going to be a brick house immediately next to the road. It'll be the next building on the left. And then that stone house up behind it, that's Charles Lee's house, from which Leetown gets its name. If I'm remembering correctly, it's called Prato Rio. I think is the name of the house. And that's right here on the left. That is Charles Lee's house. Okay. Now the road off to the right here at this intersection would lead you into the north end of Charlestown right here. And so Leetown, you can see there's the little marker right beside the road, right in the intersection. And that marks the cavalry action with McCausland. Leetown is going to be an important an important transportation hub for any force that's trying to find multiple routes to the west leaving Charlestown. And one of the reasons is that intersection right back there. This is one of the largest USGS fish hatcheries in the nation, right here in the booming metropolis of Leetown, West Virginia. This is a testament to the power and influence of Senator Robert Byrd. Probably the nicest place to fish live anywhere in the world. 5-star fish habitat. Now, if you take this road off to the left, the Bower is situated back there, and that's became very famous for the dance that was held there by Jeb Stewart. That is private property and not accessible to us. But as we come up here to this ridge, right in here is really where the majority of that fighting between McCausland and those troopers who are under Torbert, but I believe it's Merritt that's actually sparring with him right here. So if you look down over this to the front of the bus, there's a ravine in here, or a low area. This is where most of that cavalry action will take place. We're immediately south of Kearneysville here. those of you who traveled with Ed and Ted in the 1990s would have remembered Ed always teasing Ted about the strip clubs in Kearneysville. Much to Jack Owen's chagrin, they no longer are here in Kearneysville.
Yeah, not there anymore.
He was saying something up here about water everywhere and ne'er a drop to drink. These fields to the right and left have long been really prime targets for relic hunters. There's an old farmhouse back off to the right. You can see the roof of it there. That was used as a hospital, not an extensive hospital, but some of the casualties, and there were very, very few casualties here. Some of the casualties were taken to that house. There was a house and a barn back there. And although it's not on the battle maps, they're according to the relic hunting community, that McCausland fight was more of a running battle than what is indicated on more official battle maps or historians' maps. And if the relic, the artifacts that are found here, if the record left behind in the ground really tells us the story, then this is a running fight that's going from just north of Leetown almost all the way into Kearneysville, which we're getting ready to go under the modern Route 9, which was just recently constructed. I say that, it's been probably 15 years now. Great wartime structure off to the right. We're coming into Kearneysville here. And think about, I mean, this has not been a long bus ride, but think about the scope and scale of the actions that are being coordinated on that one day. Again, this has got more of a 20th century feel when you're talking about a battle. You know, there are things going on across a 20-25 mile battlefront, and we're right now coming into Kearneysville. So if you're looking at your map, we're coming into Kearneysville right now. We're going to head on to Shepherdstown. I'm doubting that many of you are staying in Kearneysville tonight. But if you're looking for a place to stay, we do have this lovely bus to the right. Shepherdstown is the oldest incorporated community in the state of West Virginia, and it's very early crossing point of the Potomac River, and so this road that we're on is a very early colonial route accessing the uppermost part of the Shenandoah Valley. So if you're gonna travel any route looking for colonial architecture in the Shenandoah Valley, this is really a hotbed for it. There are colonial period homes built all along this road, and you can do an entire tour just talking about the colonial history of this area, not the least of which is Morgan and Morgan Grove Park, and why it's called Morgan Grove Park, and its connection to the American Revolution and the Beeline March and so on. So I think Scott's going to cover that when we get to the park itself. But if you're wondering, why was all that happening here, Shepherdstown was really the only thriving community in the 1760s all the way until about 1810, 1820. It was the community of any size in this part of the valley. Harper's Ferry was a substantial town as far as its importance, but it really wasn't developed or large by any means. It was more of a manufacturing location, and the houses scattered around it were for the workers. This was a more complete town with roads that were laid out on a grid pattern, and churches and workshops and residential areas, more complete than Harper's Ferry was at the time. Jack Owens just asked me if this was originally the county seat. It was not. However, what he's probably thinking about in his drunken stupor up here is that following the war, Shepherdstown made a play to become the county seat. The courthouse in Charlestown had been, for all intents and purposes, destroyed, made unusable by the war. They moved the court to McMurrin Hall, which was part of what's now Shepherd College or Shepherd University, and they had court in that building until the courthouse was repaired in Charlestown. There was a movement afoot to try and keep it in Shepherdstown. That never happened, and it's really not an important fact at all, but since Jack brought it up, I thought I would bore you with it. All right, Morgan Grove Park's coming up here on the right. We're coming in hot. There we go. I don't know what part of the park this was supposed to be. This is the entrance of the community here. The park is another entrance up. Half a mile, okay. You're not going to be able to see it from where we are at the park, just so that you know as we're getting out of here, you are literally on the bluffs above the Potomac River here. I mean, you are not far at all from the Potomac River. So you've gone up to the farthest reaches of the valley here. That's our pavilion down there. Don't worry, folks, he closes his eyes and we go right through. Jack told us last week that he cut these bushes back. Halfway through now. That's understandable. If you go down here to this light and make a right, there's a lower entrance to the park, I think. Lower entrance. I'm not sure if it's any better, but we can try that. So that's where your lunches were. We've decided not to have lunch.